All right, hello everybody. This is Andrew here with Tower Electric Bikes, and today we're going to walk through how to install new connection ports on your Tower e-bike battery. Now, before we start, we do want to say we only recommend doing this if you have experience, with soldering and working with electronics. It is a little bit more in-depth than a lot of the other repairs on your bike. I'd strongly only recommend this be done by someone who, knows how to work with electronics and do soldering. If you do not have experience doing that sort of stuff, I would not recommend doing this, and I would recommend trying to find someone who does know how to do those things. But if you do, if you are electronically inclined, you do know how to do some soldering, then this video will walk you through how to replace these connection ends. And some reasons you may want to replace these are, if these existing connections get a little old and stretched out, they may not be making as good a connection on the controller. If this has been damaged for whatever reason, you may want to replace it. So those are some, reasons you may find yourself doing this service. Some tools you will need for this job. You will need a hot glue gun. You will need a soldering iron, some solder. You will need a Phillips head screwdriver with a small head. If you have a big bulky screwdriver, that will not work for this job. And then of course you need the new connection ends here and the connection plate. Let me get those up here so you can check them out. So you can see them here. We do not have these listed on our website. So if you do need these, just give us a call and we'd be happy to help you out. Another thing that it would be very helpful for this job, it's not necessarily required, but it definitely makes things a lot easier, makes the final job a lot better. That is, you may want to unmount your controller, or if you have a spare controller or a broken one or whatever lying around, you may want to use that. I have here sort of a custom, taken apart head here, but basically we need these 4 connection pins. And what it does is when we lay these new connections into here, they move around a little bit and, have some play in it. And what this does is it basically just plugs in here and holds the connection pins in the exact position that they will be in on the bike and battery. So obviously having this is very helpful. So we will get to it. So first start off, always make sure your battery is in the off position. Obviously the cells and everything are still live inside the battery regardless of that position, but obviously having it off does remove a few, kind of bad things that can happen while you're working on this. So to start, first we're going to take the case apart. So there are 8 screws here that we have to remove. There are 2 here in the front, 4 in the center, and then there are 2 here. Now this one is going to be under this warranty void if torn. Obviously if your your bike and battery are still within the 1-year warranty period, let us know and it's, probably be replaced. But if it's past that, then you can go ahead and just puncture that hole and get jamming on these screws. So without further ado, we will start here. And when you're doing this, be really gentle with these screws. They are somewhat small screws, and if you go in there just kind of jamming on it, there's a chance you could strip them out. Obviously, if they get stripped out, it's not a good position to be in. All right, got that one. And the screws are in there pretty firm, so you do have to press down a little, quite a bit to get them to bite and turn. But they're not terribly big screws, so. And as you unscrew these, you will also feel the case, start to separate a little bit. There's a lot going on underneath here. So as the tension of these screws comes up, everything that's in here will start to push up and you'll feel the case, sort of start to separate. right, and this is the very last screw. So once this one is undone, all right, there we are. So then you're gonna tug up, and don't tug too hard because obviously the case is still connected to the battery, so don't just yank up or you'll end up tearing out some pretty important stuff here. And then I'm gonna push all these little screws out and set them to the side. All right, and again, there are 8 of them, so make sure you have 8. Make sure I got them all. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All right, got all 8. Just gonna set those to the side. All right, and then we're gonna lift this up. And now when you take this case off, right here on this section, where the charge port is, that charge port may stay down there. It may come up with you. It's basically loose on there. But you'll see there's a little groove in the side of the case. It just slots right in, so don't be too concerned if that pops out. You know, when we reassemble everything, just make sure it's lined up and we'll all be good to go. So the main part that we are going to be looking at is right here. This is the connection spot, and you'll see you have the red positive and the black negative cables. Very important thing, obviously, if you are watching this video and you're planning on doing this, you know how to work with electronics, but I always want to drill it home. Make sure those ends never touch. If they touch, it's going to arc, it's going to make a big light, it's going to scare you, and more importantly, it's going to short your battery. So we always want to make sure that those cables are far away from each other. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get all of this glue. You'll see there's a bunch of hot glue on here. We want to get that scraped off. And it should just peel off just like it did right there. All right, and looks like I didn't even have to desolder this one. It looks like the negative came right off. And awesome, yeah, all that, oof, that glue came off real well for us. All right, so we can see that the positive is not going to come off quite as easily as the negative did. That was a little bit of an anomaly. More than likely, you will have to desolder the connections off, the power cables off of the connection ends. One of the things you'll find with this job is it's helpful to have something behind here to support it, so everything's sort of lined up here. All right, so I'm just going to take my soldering iron. You're just going to put that against here. You're going to see all that solder is going to get all melted and undone, and then we just pop it right off. All right, and one of the key things for this job is whenever you have loose globs of solder that come off, like we did right here on this frame, might be a little tough to see with the lighting, but we want to remove any excess solder splatter anywhere we have, because obviously solder is conductive, and we don't want any loose pieces of conductive metal floating around inside of our battery box. All right, so now that that's been those cables have been connected here, we're just going to remove these 2 screws that you see here. And what these screws do is we want to save them, set them to the side, because this is what's going to hold the sort of connection housing and the pins in place. So now that they are out, you'll see on this back side, see we got the old one here. We're just going to take that off and dispose of it. So now comes time to start installing the new one. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your black little housing here, you're going to flip it over, and so you see the 2 thread holes there. What you're going to do is you're going to take the little connection piece, and with that arm facing down, you're just going to slot those in there. And like I said, there's going to be, you know, a bit of play in those. A little bit of movement. All right, we got those all in there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to flip this back over, and we are going to slot this in. And I did it poorly. right, actually first, what I'm going to do is once you get them all slotted in there, take your controller and just slot it in sideways like how it would be mounted, because then it holds it all in place. See, and you can see now they're held there. Now we flip it back over, get these slotted into the groove, flip it back. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to reinstall those screws to hold the whole connection box in place. Now once these screws are in, you still do have to, oops. And there's my screw. I'm a clumsy guy, so I'm always dropping stuff. I'm sure you will be much, much better than I am. We need these to be real tight on there so that this housing box doesn't have any play or wiggle. We want it nice and firm within the case. All right, so there we are. New connection box, new connection ends have been installed to the case. So now comes the slightly more difficult part of the job, and that is actually soldering these cables back on there. Now, no matter how many times I've done this, it still, occasionally trips me up. The cables can be a little finicky. They can move around, which can make your job a little bit difficult. But we'll still walk through the whole process. So if we flip this back, we can actually see on this plate that there's negatives and positives on here. Obviously, we want the red to go to the positive and the black to go to the negative. But one of the things to remember is when we flip this over, these will be opposite. So these positives are on the top, the negatives are down below. When we flip it over, the positives are going to be down below, the negatives are going to be up top. So always remember your orientation. If you solder these backwards and try to plug it into your bike, not going to have a good time. So just always remember which cable goes to which end. So first we're going to start off with this positive. And what we're going to want to do is, there may be some solder still on the end here from when we desoldered it. What we can try to do is try to use some of that solder to get it melted on here. Get these bonded. Because once you have a little bit of a hold, it gets a little bit easier. It's when we don't have anything holding these in place that it gets much, much more difficult. All right, I think I got a little bit of a hold there. And I'm going to take some fresh solder and get this connection all put together. No good. And like I said, this part of the job is the most tedious and can be the most difficult, as making sure because these cables, as you can see, have a lot of tension to them, and they're constantly wanting to pull away from me. So I think I got some bite there. All right, cool. Got it hooked up to one connection end. All right, let's check my work. Do I have it connected on both ends? I do not. In fact, I only have one by a single thread, so time to keep on jamming. Cool. I think I got some good connection there. Oh yeah, that was real good. All right, I think I may have gotten it there. Let's check. Wonder bar. It is all connected there. Now you may see I got a little bit of solder down in there. It's a little tough to get to at the moment, but that's not going to be much of an issue, because now that we have this attached, then we're going to take our hot glue gun and we're just going to cover all that solder we just put on there, all those connection ends, because the hot glue is very insulating and will not allow the two ends to touch. So you can be generous here. You know, a little more is definitely better, because obviously we don't want any exposed metal to have these two negatives and positives touch each other. So with that, the positive is all done. Now we just have the negative to do. So again, just like the positive, we're going to try to get this kind of wedged in between the two connection ends. And then I'm going to try to use some of the pre-existing solder on here. All right, looks like I got a little bit of hold. Looks like the negative's going a little bit smoother so far. I want to count my chickens before they've hatched. Let's get some solder on there. I had it so well and I melted it too much. All right, well, I think I may have gotten them connected here. Perfect, got them all connected. Now again, we're coming back with that hot glue gun. And again, cover up any exposed cable or connection that you have here, or solder drops. Just be extra generous with it. And my glue stick's running out a little bit, so I gotta push a little bit because I don't have that back end. All right, so there we are. The new connection ends have been soldered up. Now it's time to just put everything back together. So what we're going to do is we're just going to flip this back closed. Make sure your lock on this side and your charge port on the other are in their proper little channels. And then we also want to make sure that we're not pinching any cables or threading through any. I got this yellow one. There we go. Got it tucked up. Anything the other side. Oh, should be all. All right, and then we're going to reassemble the case here. And when we do these, we don't want to thread these in all the way, because we want to try to get even torque all the way around. At this point, you can totally remove the little connection end. Yours would probably just be your controller, because now that those are soldered in place and the whole unit is mounted in, they're all perfectly aligned where they need to be, so we can remove that because it has served its purpose. So yeah, just go around and get all of these little screws started. And then once they've all been started, then we'll sort of go around in a star pattern and make sure that they're all tightened down evenly and that our case has even hold all the way around it. Alright, so now that they're all started, I'm just going to kind of go around in sort of a zigzagging pattern to make sure you're giving equal sort of tension all the way around. All right, and with that, your new connection ends have been attached and your battery is all ready to go. So thanks for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.